This strong young man working at a construction site. He was bragging how he could outdo anyone in a feat of strength. And he made a special case of making fun of one of the older workmen. And after several minutes of hearing this young man, the older man finally had had enough. And he said to the young man, he said, "Why don't you put your money where your mouth is? I will bet a week's wages that I can haul something in a wheelbarrow over to that building over there, and you won't be able to haul it back." "You're on, old man," replied the young guy. "Let's see what you got." So the old man reached out and grabbed the wheelbarrow off by the handles, and then he looked at the young man and he said, "All right, get in." That's one of those you got to dwell on that a minute. But I love that phrase, put your money where your mouth is. It obviously means that a person should follow up their talk with real action. So if we say that we believe in a specific cause, for example, then if we have the means to do so, then we should support that cause. However, particularly with our pocketbooks. And I have to admit, this is a tough one for me. There are many things out there that I would love to support, but I just simply cannot do so. I don't have the financial means to support everything. Still, I wonder, how much financial support I would give to all the causes that I say I support or believe in if I had ample resources. Regardless, I have no qualms telling other people to put their money where their mouth is. Now, when Annie and I lived in Indianapolis, right before we moved here, we got a lot of good mileage out of that saying. Remember that, Annie? Some of you know the story about our former congregation on the east side of Indianapolis called St. John, UCC, and it was in the Cumberland Township. St. John was housed in a 100-year-old Tudor-style sanctuary, much like this one, looks a lot like this one from the outside. But that particular building had become a serious money pit. It was crumbling, it was falling apart, the walls are caving in the basement and so forth. So for many years, this diminishing congregation had been trying to sell that property, including the old sanctuary. And they wanted to rebuild on some farmland that had been willed to them decades earlier, just a couple of miles away. And right now they do have a little edifice there, a little barn that they worship in. But this old sanctuary becomes such an albatross around the necks of this small, aging congregation that they were more than willing to see this building razed to the ground, if that's what it took to get out from underneath that property. Unfortunately, the people who lived in that area, people that never set foot in that church, did not belong to that church, they did not appreciate that congregation's financial dilemma. And so they did everything in their power to stop the sale. In fact, they ordered a couple of sales of that property to potential buyers who would not promise to save the building. And so the people in that area, at first they used legal means to stop the sale, which they succeeded first and it failed. And however, eventually what really helped them, their cause, was social media. They blasted St. John congregation and their people with every name imaginable in the book, and they told every lie they could think of to keep prospective buyers away from that property. Basically saying, if you come here and buy that property and set up a business, we will not support your business. We will boycott it. So it was pretty bad. I was called the devil, in like-minded words, on more than one occasion by people who thought that we had moved in to coerce the people to sell that property, which was not true. They had started that process years before. Nevertheless, because of all this, the members of St. John developed a really good response to the community, the people who fought the sale of that property and claimed that they wanted to save the building. And you know what the response was? Put your money where your mouth is. Hundreds of people claimed that they supported that old red brick building And yet not one of them ever stepped forward to help us renovate the building in order to save it, which would have costed about $1 million. I learned through that experience that human beings, including myself, we love to talk a good game. But much of the time, we're not willing to do something about it. Even when we're able to, we're not willing to do something about it. Now, the prophet Jeremiah, we just heard from him. He certainly put his money where his mouth was. It's the 6th century BCE. The Babylonians have taken siege of Jerusalem. And Jeremiah was being held captive in the king's palace. The king of Judah, named Zedekiah, was angry at Jeremiah for going around and telling everybody that the Babylonians were going to win, that they were going to conquer Jerusalem, and they were going to capture the king. That upset King Zedekiah. And so he locks up Jeremiah in a prison cell in the palace. Would be a bad place to be if you're going to be in a prison cell, right? In the palace. And he had visitors. So one day, Jeremiah's cousin, Hanamel, comes to see him about a family, land, sort of inheritance type issue. Hanamel tells Jeremiah, remember, he's languishing in a prison cell in the midst of a siege of the city. Hanamel tells him that he has the right to purchase a piece of family property. He's the first one in line. If he wants to buy it, he can. Now, who in their right mind would buy a piece of property in a situation like that? Buying land in a war-torn country that will not be worth anything. It's going to be taken away from you anyway. And yet Jeremiah decides to do that as a sign that things will get better. Jeremiah is a prophet of hope. He trusts that God will eventually make Jerusalem great again, to use a term we've been hearing. This is sort of like investing in the stock market immediately after the stock market, or while it's crashing, right? You can only hope that it'll get better, and that's what he's doing. And so Jeremiah makes the purchase and gives the deed to a man named Baruch for safekeeping, telling him to put it in an earthenware jar. Because you know, nothing says safekeeping like an earthenware jar. And yet he truly believes in God's promises for Jerusalem's future. He quotes God saying, houses and fields and vineyards shall again be bought in this land. He put his money where his mouth was. Now, of course, I mean, let's be honest. Jeremiah is in prison in the palace of a king who's about to be captured by the Babylonians. It's not like his money is worth anything anyway. That whole economy is about to go down the tubes. I think he knew what the writer of 1 Timothy understood and wrote about centuries later when he said, "For we brought nothing into the world so that we can take nothing out of it." How many of you have ever been told you can't take it with you? We've all been told that. That's what he understood. And Jeremiah knew that, which I think made it a little easier for him to put his money where his mouth is. It was useless money anyway. But all of our readings today encourage us, at least indirectly, to put our money where our mouth is. Jeremiah buys a piece of worthless property to prove how much he believes in Israel's future. The writer of 1 Timothy, however, tells us what might hinder our ability to put our money where our mouth is. And two things: greed and a lack of contentment. Now, greed, of course, is our biggest obstacle, right? And the most famous quote that you heard Stephen read from 1 Timothy is verse 10. "For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil." Notice he doesn't say money itself is evil. Money is a necessity of life in almost all economic systems in the world. The love of money, however, is where we get into trouble. In its most extreme forms, it keeps us from being content with what we have And it also keeps us from using our money for things that we say we support or we believe in. So I posted this the other day on Facebook. Some of you might have read it, and you're invited to post it yourself. Put your money where your mouth is, unless your mouth is in the wrong place. I made that up. Be sure to give credit to me if you do post it. Put your money where your mouth is, unless your mouth is in the wrong place. Which means, if we are consumed with the love of money and greed, and we cannot find any kind of contentment in life, then the use of our money will reflect those things about us. The use of our money will reflect our greed, and it will reflect our lack of contentment, if that's where our mouth is. Now, turning to our reading from Luke. The passage in Luke also speaks to this theme about putting our money where our mouth is. Jesus tells a parable about a man who learned this principle too late. In this parable, a beggar named Lazarus hangs out in front of a rich man's gate every day. By the way, notice that Lazarus is given a name. The rich man is not. Which, if this is a true story and it really happened, everybody would have known the rich man's name. Nobody would have known Lazarus' name. That's kind of interesting. So Lazarus is hoping just to get some food, right? That's why he's there every day. If only the crumbs from the rich man's table. So both men die, and the angels take the poor man to Father Abraham. Now, in the mythology of that day, when someone died, apparently their goal, their hope was to be in Abraham's bosom, in his presence. Sort of like when we die today, we say we're going to go see Jesus, right? Well, for them, they were going to go see Father Abraham. The rich man, on the other hand, he goes to a different place. He goes to Hades. Remember the ancient world? You had Hades below, you had the earth, and then you had heaven above. Now, this is one of those passages where some people get their modern notions about hell, but it's not really the same thing, but it's close. But because heaven is up there and Hades is down here, the rich man is looking up and he sees this man who had been hanging out in front of his mansion for a long time. He's there with Father Abraham in a much better place. So the rich man, he's in the flames and he's desperate. So he asked Abraham if Abraham will send Lazarus, again, a man he's ignored all of these years, to just bring a fingertip of water to his lips. You remember, Lazarus just wanted crumbs from the rich man's table. Now the rich man is asking just for a fingertip of water to his hot lips. But Abraham said to the man, "Child, remember that during your lifetime you received good things, and Lazarus, in like manner, evil things. But now he is comforted here, and you are in agony." Now, I know this suggests sort of an evening out of things in life, good, bad karma and all that sort of thing. If you receive good things in this life, it's going to be bad the next, and vice versa. Don't take that too literally. This is a parable. Jesus is not really making a literal statement about what life is like in the afterworld. Because if we took it literally, we would want bad things to happen to us now, right? We would be begging for bad things to happen so that good things will happen in the next life. And that's don't take it literally. But the interesting thing about this parable is this chasm between Hades and heaven. It's so wide that people can't cross over it, yet they can hear each other speak. So not only can the rich man not go up and cross over, neither can Lazarus come down and go through it. And it's sort of like a vertical expression of a moat you might see in a zoo between the crocodiles and the people. It's like they keeps it away from the crocodiles, away from us, and us away from them. So the rich man finally understands that I can't be saved. I'm doomed. So he decides then to show a little, when his back's against the wall, he's going to show a little humanity by asking Abraham to send Lazarus to his 5 brothers who are all still living, to warn them about their own despicable lifestyle so that they will not end up in Hades along with him. It's a good gesture. But I love Abraham's reply. He says, nah. They already have Moses. They have the prophets. They just need to listen to them. But the rich man says, no, he's desperate. No, Father Abraham, think about it. If someone comes back from the dead, they will repent. And, you would think that, right? But again, Abraham says, nah. That wouldn't work either. If they don't listen to Moses and the prophets, they sure ain't going to listen to somebody who came back from the dead. Now, this is an obvious reference to Jesus' resurrection. Well, what's the moral to that story? Very simple. If you're blessed with lots of resources in this life and you wait until the next life to use it for good, it's sort of too late. Now, I know that we have such things as plan giving, and we have wills and estate giving and all that sort of thing, and that's great. Don't forget all that. Be sure to put a manual in your plan giving, okay? Give you the heads up for that. But if you wait until then to do good with your money, it's too late. Put your money where your mouth is now. If you really want to enjoy the fruits of what you've done, do it now. Like the writer of 1 Timothy says, don't let greed and a lack of contentment get in the way. And like Jeremiah, be willing to express your hope for the future by investing in the future now.